I just want to start by saying that I see you, people in the room who are carrying stories. I have this weird side effect of perhaps being slightly overly empathic. And because that happens, sometimes I can sense emotions in a room. And I see them. They're floating. They're in the sanctuary. They're here. And I just want you to know that I see you. And tonight, I want to break the silence too, but I want to break the silence of dozens and dozens of women and men who I meet through my work at Immerse NYC, a community mikveh project located here in New York City. Our job is to facilitate mikveh immersions for those who are going through life transitions and for those who are experiencing joy and grief and everywhere in between. I was always attracted to the power of ritual as a way to mark change, as a way to mark transition. And when I was going through something in my family and my sibling came out as transgendered, the Friday night blessing was what transferred my family from a place of searching in the dark to a place of going in a particular direction. The ritual helped to ground us as an enactment of all the feelings that were swirling around. And so I want to talk about as ritual as an opportunity to not only be moments of breaking the silence here and there, but a structural way for us to really show up for our peers and our congregants. And I want to tell you a story of a woman who sought Immerse NYC out to use our services. She had her first miscarriage around 2 years ago and realized that she had no way to do anything about this but call me and ask me a question about Nida, about when she would be able to reunite with her husband after the bleeding had stopped. She said almost as an afterthought, I lost the baby and I've been counting the days and I got a clean check and I stopped her and I said, "I'm so sorry for your loss." And she said, "I didn't know that I could talk about that." And the conversation around halakha became an opening into really talking about what her loss was and how to mark it. So I invited her in for a meeting, and she was telling me about all the feelings that were going through her heart and her partner's heart, and we were talking about how to mark this. And, we don't have a ritual. We don't have a ritual for fertility challenges in our community, for pregnancy loss, for stillborn. We can find them here and there in our ancient texts, in prayers of women. But in terms of really widely used and accepted rituals, we don't have much. So I saw this as an opportunity and I said, let's sit together and let's write one, right? It's very exciting. When there is no ritual, you can go ahead and create something that really fits the story of that person. So we're sitting together and we come up with the fact that what's weighing most heavily on her is her grief and her inability to publicly acknowledge this through the traditional Jewish mourning rituals. So we decided that she would visit the mikveh as she had needed to anyhow, but she would bring a yahrzeit candle with her, a memorial candle. And while she prepped in the bathroom, showering, having intentions around what it meant for her that night, that moment, she lit the candle in memory of the baby she had lost. We went to the mikveh, she immersed, we said some prayers together. She came back, she got dressed, she blew it out. This was our little Shiva together, our way for her to be seen in her pain and to be acknowledged that yes, it was real grief. She called me a number of months later. She said, "Dasi, I just had my second loss." I said, "Come in, let's write a ritual." We did some writing. We came up with a piece that she could read in the mikveh, whose waters are meant to replicate itself a womb, could perhaps be healing for her in that moment, maybe. So this time we went, she brought the candle again, and she read the piece in the water. With her wet hair and her tears, she embraced me, went on her way. A number of months later, I got a call. She said, "Dasi, I've just experienced my third loss." And I said, "Okay, great, let's come on over to Drisha where we were meeting and let's write another ritual." And she got so angry with me. She said, "I am done writing rituals, Dasi, I'm done. You know, for once, I want to be able to look in a siddur and see a religion and see a people who actually sees me back, who actually has something in here that speaks to my experience. And I don't want to every time take out a notebook and write something new." So my call for us tonight is to find a way for us to see each other in these moments communally and as peers, in a way that feels both authentic to our tradition and the rootedness of our tradition, but also unique enough to speak to all of the challenges around fertility. And I so am grateful for you sharing your stories, and for Naomi Les sharing her stories, and for all of you who've shared with me tonight. And as you know, it's a very diverse experience of fertility. We have a group, a spiritual support group at Immerse NYC. Its title is very long. It's called Fertility, Miscarriage, Pregnancy Loss, Stillbirth, and Pregnancy After Loss. That's a lot of words, and it's meant to encompass the full range of what is possible and what we need to be thinking about. So I want to talk about what it looks like to create a ritual, and I want to give you some tools in the next couple minutes before I finish up. And I want to read a quote to you by Vanessa Oakes, who wrote a wonderful book called Inventing Jewish Ritual. It's very beautiful, and there are some examples in there about fertility. And she says that part of the efficacy of rituals is that we can easily trick ourselves into believing that our invented rituals were never new, re-embraced, or remade. But the fact is that all of our rituals were at one point created. They were new, and then, because they were embraced, they became real. So before I continue, I ask that if there is someone in the room who is going through a challenge or a joy, and they would like to experience a ritual in a way that they choose, that we embrace and affirm that choice, whether that looks like what we're used to or not. So the risks around creating ritual, like the woman whose story I told you, can be that creating a ritual can be clunky, right? It can be superficial, and it can privilege the script over the person. And I don't know if you've ever been to a wedding or some sort of life event where the ritual was so created that there was a booklet, this thick, and every 5 seconds there would be another explanation. And so what happens is the bride and groom are standing there and they're like turning around right and left, and the officiant is just saying the next thing, and meanwhile they've gotten forgotten. So the first thing I would say is that it should privilege the person over the text. Some of the most powerful rituals that we do in the mikveh are as basic as this, and I invite you to write this down if you'd like to use it in the mikveh or for any ritual you do. It's to take 3 intentions. Traditionally, there are 3 immersions in an Orthodox mikveh immersion for Nida. And sometimes we just share that the person should think about 3 intentions. The first, what am I leaving behind? What am I releasing into the mikveh and not taking with me? Take a deep breath and immerse. 2, how am I present right now? What does it feel like to be here right now? 3, what am I emerging towards after this immersion? What will it feel like to walk in the Manhattan air? What attitudes am I embracing? What am I going towards? And I invite anybody who's looking for a ritual to just try that frame. Sometimes less is more. Another way that we can think about ritual as really speaking to the struggles of real-time people and real-time stories is what Aaron was talking about around text and our tradition, that we shouldn't be afraid of bringing them into our experience, that in some way I believe there's something called ritual competency, that you can call a spiritual leader or someone who knows their stuff and say, I'm looking for a text about this because I want to feel like my tradition sees me. So that's kind of, I would say, the larger frame that I want to offer to you. And as an opening, and I welcome you to ask questions during the conversation about some of the work we do, but I want to just tell you about it so you know about it. We provide immersions for any life event, and that includes ones which have ways that are communally acknowledged and ones that do not. So I would say that 80% of our work is fertility work. So just so you know, when I'm at the mikveh, it's folks who are struggling with all sorts of things and who want a place to actually celebrate trying. So people come right before and they want to ritualize that as well. So if you'd like, you can schedule an immersion of any kind, and that includes men and women. We have male and female mikveh guides, some of whom are in the room, actually, and who are trained to hold you and help you create ritual. My hope is that ritual is not something that misses us and that makes us feel unseen. And so many folks who I've spoken to have said that in ritual spaces during these struggles, they feel unseen. And so I wonder how, whether it's in the private walls of the mikveh or in a more public space like the shul, how ritual can be an opportunity.